If you've had Dragonborns in your D&D table before, you have probably felt the same change of heart that I've seen a couple of times. The most recent one was with Arjun, a Dragonborn sorcerer. In his initial adventures, if the party was in trouble, surrounded by enemies, you could be certain that his breath weapon would open enemy lines and create some uproar and excitement on the game table. A few adventures later, that would not happen anymore, and his use of race traits was so rare that one could easily forget that Arjun was a Dragonborn. Dragonborns have a great flavor. Who doesn't like to play dragons after all? They were also quite strong in 4e. Those are the reasons, in my point of view, that explain why they're still so popular, because their 5e race traits are quite frankly underwhelming. A damage resistance and a breath weapon. The real problem is not only the few race traits available, but how limited the breath weapon actually is. You can use it only once per short or long rest, and its damage improves every 5 levels, and not by much. Truth is, more or less by 5th level, when all classes get a small power bump, the breath weapon is not very much useful anymore. After all, a very similar 1st level spell like Burning Hands would cause more damage. By 5th level, the number and slots of spells available for arcane classes is enough to put the breath weapon way below the list of powers and abilities that could be used. And many times, an extra attack of martial classes would make more sense than using the breath weapon. After the first 10 levels, it's already become the kind of power that you only access in very specific occasions, or when there's literally nothing more to use. The 5e Dragonborn's breath weapon is in fact so underwhelming that it received important buffs in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Some of those buffs were kept in One D&D, and others were adjusted. In Fizban's, breath weapon damage became higher in more advanced levels, and in One D&D, its average damage was further increased. Another Fizban's change was that instead of 1 charge per rest, now the breath weapon could be used as many times as the character's proficiency bonus, increasing the number of use and thus its power in higher levels. This change was kept in Character Origins playtest material and is in line with a recent and general trend of reducing the importance of short rests that will probably be consolidated in One D&D. Another change to the Fizban's breath weapon was the requirement of an attack to use rather than an action. That made the Dragon Breath much more powerful for martial classes, who could use it and still make their remaining attacks in the same round, in their more advanced levels. Interestingly enough, this buff was reversed in One D&D. Perhaps it made the breath weapon too strong, hence the change. Now the disappointing bit. In Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, each of the 3 Dragonborn ancestries had some original, flavorful traits: chromatic warding, gem flight, and even a second metallic breath weapon. The One D&D Dragonborn design is much less interesting than that of Fizban's. Instead of those traits, Dragonborns got dark vision and the draconic language. Yep, that's it. What a bummer! I don't think these last changes in particular are necessarily a debuff. After all, both Dark Vision and Draconic are far from useless traits. They're just less interesting, and maybe that's the reason, to keep the Fizban's character options more exciting. Anyways, it's a bit of a startling build. It's the only race that kept a language as a race trait, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if we have not reached the Dragonborn final design yet. All in all, with all changes and a small buff here and a small debuff there, I think that the One D&D Dragonborns are roughly in line with the power level we saw in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, and more importantly, both of those designs are far more powerful compared to the 5e design, taking Dragonborns straight up from Dire Straits to the most powerful races club. On the other hand, there's not much more about it, contrary to the additional abilities we had seen in Fizban's, which had added some cool, new flavor for the Dragonborn race.